Hello viewers, welcome to this tutorial. So we're dealing with the while loop. Okay, the previous tutorial we dealt with the for loop. Okay, so we're not doing the while loop. Okay, so you understand all this break and all that stuff is. So let's go with the while loop. Okay, and you know with the while loop we have to predefine this value. Okay, so the while loop doesn't receive values from the iterable. If you don't really know that, check my while loop and for loop tutorials. So this equal to 0, then it cleans this error. So let's clean this value. So if you run this code, you see the previous thing which we already did. So we have 3. So just watch the previous tutorial. Oh, let me close this code again. Okay, let me stop this code. There was one thing I omitted from the code because we have to do what is called the increment. Okay, we have to do what is called the increment. So current value plus equals 1. Okay, you guys remember this when we're dealing with the while loop, because the while loop doesn't do the increment on its own, so we have to do the increment by ourselves. Okay, so if I rerun it again, 3, so we have the first one, it's not your turn 0, it's not your turn 1, it's not your turn 2, it's your turn 3, it's not your turn 4. So if you watch the previous tutorial, it's the same thing for the for loop. Okay, so just watch the for loop, you will know why we have all these values printed. Okay, so the while does the same thing, the only difference is we have to reprint a value here, or so predefine a value here for this variable. Okay, it doesn't fetch from the numbers, and also we have to make the increment. So these are the two things. Now these increments can be placed anywhere. You can place them here and you can place them here as well. Okay, all right, you can put them here as well. Oh, what is happening? Okay, let me copy it again. I didn't copy. Okay, all right, so there's it. You can have this one, you can have this increment here and here. If you have it there, then you have to emit it here, unless it will be a duplicate. It will add here and add it to this as well. Okay, so if you run the code, it still works similar. Okay, it works the same way, but we just want to have it outside. We don't want to duplicate it for each and every one of them, because if you have several LE, if you have to be duplicating it, which will be a complete waste of code. Okay, so this is what we want to do. Now check where this value is. Okay, the current value is not under the if statement, neither is the current value under the else statement. Okay, so just be careful about it. It's not under the if statement, neither is it under the else statement. So let's be cautious of how we try to run our code. So this value we have right here is so different. Okay, so it's only under the while loop. If we put it under the if statement, which by all means, if the if statement does not run, the else statement will run. Okay, so it will still do the increment, but sometimes it's just good to put it outside so it runs whether this runs or that does not run, so it has no problem with it. Okay, so if we introduce the break, if you watch the previous tutorial, you know what the break does. It does the same job. So we have it's your turn, it's not your turn, it's not your turn, it's not your turn, then it's your turn. So it skips the 4. Okay, it skips the 4. You already know what it means. We need the third person. We found him and we are good to go. You can change these values. You can use 2, you can use 1, you can use any value you want. Okay, so what happens if we want to use the continue? Because I made mention that there are two syntaxes we can use for the while loop and the for loop. It's either break and continue. All right, so what the break does is the break stops the code completely. So the break says that if you find the one you were searching for, come on, stop all the code, forget about every other thing you have in the code. So to stop everything including this one. Alright, but the continue simply means if you find this person, skip him and deal with the other people you have to deal with. So what happens with the continue is that maybe there is a user who is always disturbing us, okay, with a particular number. So if you find the number of the user who always disturbs us, skip him, go to someone else and work with them. So we use continue instead of break. Okay, so I said earlier the break stops the whole code because we find whosoever we're searching for. The continue skips the particular person we've seen. Why? Because it's always disturbing us, or maybe we don't want to take him into consideration, or we don't want to take a particular number into consideration. So if you find a number, just continue. Don't mind it. Now it will not work. Why won't it work? Let's see. Okay, so I have to take this one out and say you are not going to be skipped. Okay, skip. Can I spell skip? Yes, skip. All right, you are not going to be skipped. All right, so you are not going to be skipped, but this guy will be skipped. Okay, so that's why we bring the continue. So the continue will be skipped. So we don't want to display anything. We just don't want to show anything to the user. So this is the actual work we want to do for the individual users, and for this user we don't want to display anything to him. So it's kind of we just want to skip him. All right, so this code will still not work, and this is why it will not work. Okay, look at it. You are not going to be skipped 0, you're not going to be skipped 1, you're not going to be skipped 2, it skipped the 3, but look, it skipped the 4 as well. It did not display the 4, it did not show us the 4. So what happens is, now if you bring continue, what happens is the continue skips all the code left as well. Okay, it's just like the break. So the break stops every other code from running within the for loop, closes the for loop on its own, and jumps to every other thing it wants to continue with if there are other codes after the loop. But the continue skips that particular value. Okay, but it doesn't stop the whole, it just skips that particular value. So what we have to do is bring the increments within the continue. So you have to say current value plus equal 1. Okay, so the increment will happen before the continue. If this happens, which means it will not have access to this increment, but it will have access to this increment. Okay, so we still want to have access to that increment. So if you check something, if we run the code, no, it is not done with the code yet. Okay, it's still running the code, meaning it's waiting because there's still an increment, so we have to stop the code ourselves. All right, so that is what happens. So we need to bring this one, the current value of the increment, within it. Okay, and we can leave it here. So but when we leave it, it may be a duplicate, but it might not be a duplicate though, it will still work the same way. Okay, so you see 4. all right, so what happens is after the continue, every other code is skipped, so this code will be skipped as well. All right, so to make things short, we can say, okay, let's bring the increments within as well. All right, but the reason I wouldn't advise bringing the increments within is, just imagine we have if statements, elif statements, like 4 of them, and we'll bring all these things, each one of them, it will really create a disturbance. Okay, so we just want to bring it among only one, and maybe we leave the rest, but you can bring it within, no problem with that. But after bringing it within, make sure you cancel it from this angle. Okay, if it will confuse you, just bring it outside them, so it works for both of them. Okay, it works for the entire while loop. And afterwards, what you can do is remember to bring the increment, because after this continue, every other code will be skipped. Okay, so if we run this code, we are number 3, it prints for 0, it prints for 1, it prints for 2, it skips 3, it prints for 4. So this is how to use continue. It kind of skips the value which is identified, and the break kind of, after identifying a particular value, it just runs through every other one, as in breaks every other loop, so it doesn't run through the loop anymore. So do the same thing for the for loop. The for loop actually works the same, so you just bring for loop here, and this value is different, and I think you are good to go. Take out this increment and you are good to go with the for loop. And if there are any other changes, just kind of do with them. So let me see what happens. Just try to I don't want to resolve this problem for you, but okay, it's actually the same thing. Okay, so you see the difference between the for loop and the while loop. You just have to make sure you don't predefine the variable here, and just take the increment out of the game, and you are done. So this is how to do with if statements within for and while loop, and how to use the break and continue syntaxes within them. So, and these are for looping statements. Okay, so thanks for viewing, and subscribe if you have not. Like the video if it was good for you, leave your comments behind, and hit the bell so every other update you just receive them. Thank you for viewing.